Well, hello, everybody. Give you a little background. I have a degree in psychology and a degree in biology, and thought I would go to med school, but I lack the killer instinct that I saw in my pre-med classes, and I fell in love. So I did get married and went down a different path. My first job out of college was as a lab technician in a 7-doctor animal hospital. And then Clyde and I took an assignment with the United Methodist Church US2 program in Nebraska, where we were house parents to wards of the court, which meant they did something they shouldn't have and got taken out of their homes. After that assignment, we did move to Colorado, and my job here was with the Internal Medicine Center as a lab technician and a medical assistant. With the arrival of Aaron and buying a house, our first 5-year plan of our marriage was complete, and I spent the next 15 years raising children. When Colin started school, a job at the high school, Cherry Creek High School, fell into my lap, and so I didn't look for a medical job. And I spent about almost 17 years at Cherry Creek High School, and my last job there was as the network administrator. When I was looking at retirement, volunteering in medicine was calling. And all my medical experience had been before the AIDS epidemic. So I decided I needed to update my protocols. So I applied to nursing school, and I graduated as a licensed practical nurse in May of 2013. And my first trip with Project C.U.R.E. was August of 2013. Project C.U.R.E. was started in 1987 by Doug Jackson from Evergreen. He was in Brazil as an economic advisor, and on the weekend was taken to a little clinic, little medical clinic, and he walked in and there was a rusted exam table and little of anything else. And he had a lot of friends here in the United States that were in the medical profession. So when he came home, he called his friends and said, "Do you have anything you can donate to me?" And he ended up with a couple of $100,000 worth of equipment and supplies and sent them to that clinic in Brazil. And that was the beginning of Project C.U.R.E. Project C.U.R.E., their main mission is getting donated equipment and supplies to resource-poor countries. They presently have 7 distribution centers around the country right now. The international headquarters is here in Colorado, just about 3 miles south of Hope United Methodist Church. And they send 4 to 6 40-foot seagoing containers every week around the world. And they send to 135 different countries. Now, for that to happen, a government, a corporation, a hospital, a nonprofit aid company contacts Project C.U.R.E. and says, "We need help." So Project C.U.R.E. sends an assessor down with a very long questionnaire and spreadsheet and takes the needs and assets of the location. And because we don't want to send electrical equipment if there isn't electricity, and we also want to make sure that anything we send can get through customs and make it to where it's supposed to, no black market stuff. So there's a big, long contract and all of that. When they come home, that assessment is sent to whichever distribution center around the country would be best able to fulfill that. The cost of shipping a container is somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000. But, and we ask that the sponsoring organization is pretty much responsible for that. The amount of stuff in the container is anywhere from $400,000 to $500,000. So it's a pretty good deal, and that was all donated. We have been known to, when a hospital is going to refurbish something, somebody will go in, dismantle the operating room and take it out, and we will send it somewhere. We do beds, hospital rooms, all the way down to alcohol wipes. It's quite an amazing thing. Project C.U.R.E also has some training programs. There's a suite of programs about helping babies survive and helping mothers survive. There's also diarrhea management. Right now, I'm on a team that is developing cervical cancer screening and treating. 800 women die every single day in the world from cervical cancer, and it's preventable. Now, what's interesting is with vinegar and canned air as a freezing agent, you can detect and treat precancerous and stage 1 cancerous lesions. So it's pretty amazing that happens. I'm also on the pack team. We pack everything you would need on a clinic into bags and send them with us. We pack medications, stethoscopes, otoscopes, ophthalmoscopes, thermometers, pulse oximeters, glucometers, blood pressure cuffs, minor surgical packs, hand sanitizer, gloves, tongue depressors, alcohol wipes, drapes, headlamps, wound supply, saline solution, syringes, needles, and even duct tape and trash bags. Most of our participants are asked to carry one of those 50-pound bags with them on their travels. Our teams consist of doctors, physician's assistants, nurse practitioners, EMTs, nurses, and non-medical. And our non-medical are actually very important. We always have to have non-medical. They are crowd control people. There are runners to take people to different locations. They work in the pharmacy that we take with us, and they also work entering data in our spreadsheet databases. If we have a specialty provider like women's health, dentistry, dermatology, the local agency will advertise in the community for that, so we can make sure that we've got people who need their help when they get there. In Haiti, our dentist and a local Haitian dentist spent all 4 days of clinics pulling teeth. No special dental chair, no electricity. They basically straddled a bench with the person's head in their lap and pulled teeth for 4 days. The locations that receive containers, we travel to places that get containers now. And our job is to support the local infrastructure of the company, the country, the local health location. It's amazing how many people will come see American doctors and nurses when they won't go to their own provider. So our primary care clinics do a lot of screening for chronic diseases, hypertension, diabetes, and things like that. And then we are able to refer those to the local clinic. And the fact that we do the referring as Americans give credibility to the local system. And it really works. People come to see us, they walk for hours. We've had women who will walk 4 hours to come see us. It's mind-baffling. For my first trip to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I really did find a rewarding and exciting retirement. Let's see here. I've done 22 trips with Project C.U.R.E. And on those trips, you end up getting some amazing history. And I've got to tell you one piece of history. Suriname, which is on South America, many people thought it was in Africa. Even people who were going thought it was in Africa. Used to be Dutch Guiana, if you remember that. And for over 100 years, England and Holland used to fight about their colonies. And there was going to be another war. And somebody said, hold on. Okay, Holland, you take the sugar plantation colony in South America. England, you take New Amsterdam. So if you remember your US history, I believe it was Peter Stuyvesant who bought Manhattan from the Indians and named it New Amsterdam. And that's why we speak English instead of Dutch. So I'm going to start my slides now. So if you just hold with me while I share my screen. This is Doug Jackson and the first shipment from his garage up in Evergreen. This is the countries that Project C.U.R.E. Sends containers to. There are quite a few of them. This is the warehouse here in Denver. These are the distribution centers and the collection centers. Interesting fact I didn't know, Walmart sometimes has empty trucks and they will go by one of these collection centers and empty it out and then go deliver it to one of the distribution centers. It's amazing how all these little things work together to make things happen. This is a container similar to what we use when we send, and they are packed from edge to edge when we send them. This is me going on a trip. All of my gear is in the backpack and my carry-on, which is also a backpack. And the 2 bags are 50 pounds of equipment and supplies, each of them. And this is frequently how I go. Since I come from Denver and can pick up stuff easily, I frequently have to take the 2 bags that get checked, and then everything else is carry-on. Okay, these are the countries that I've been to: Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, Paraguay, Haiti, St. Vincent, Suriname, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Tanzania, India, and Cambodia. Since I've been on 22 trips in only 13 countries, you can tell I've doubled up on some of them. We do our clinics in hospitals. This is in Nicaragua, in Del Norte. And small clinics. This is Suriname. And these small clinics, sometimes it's kind of a trick to get the flow between the triage and then into the doctor and then to the pharmacy. We also set up in schools. This is a school in Haiti. Over here on the left are the classrooms, and we have doctors in triage and the dentist in the different classrooms. Down there in front of you, those people on that porch are waiting at the pharmacy. Now, this particular school had a road kind of to it, but it had been raining off and on, and so we actually had to carry all our bags up this road to that school. This is in Peru. This is a soccer field in a town up on 10,000 feet, and this is how Newmont sets us up with these kinds of tents. And this is another Newmont tent, but this is what it looks like inside. There are the woman in blue and myself, we're the nurses. The women on the outsides on the right and left are our interpreters, and our patients are the 2 in the middle. And this is how we work. We share a table. We work with an interpreter. The interpreter, my interpreter there, actually I had both trips in Peru. She translated for me both times. I have a woman in Paraguay who on my 4th trip took vacation so she could translate for me. Translation's kind of interesting. In the Chaco of Paraguay, we are working with the native indigenous population, and they speak Guarani. So my Spanish interpreter spoke to a Guarani who then spoke to a local dialect and then back to me through all those people. And you do kind of wonder how that all works. I'm a triage nurse, therefore I do vitals, and I try to get some sense of what's why the person is there. So then I can write that down for the doctor so it doesn't take so long for the provider. Yes, in Peru, the dogs are loved and they are everywhere. Clyde even put together a PowerPoint of the dogs of Peru, but they would just come and lay down next to us, and it was very interesting. This is also how we sometimes set up our clinics. This is in Ghana, and that blue table in front of you is actually the doctor's table, so there's not a lot of privacy, as you can see. And a similar table to that is where I am from this picture, and that's us as triaging right next to where the doctor is. This is Paraguay. This is my translator right here in front. And this big table that you see there has actually 3 nurses around it, triaging, and then I'm triaging at this small table. Now, these people on the right are all waiting for us. And this is what it looks like from the back side. These people are given numbers, and we call numbers. So it's not just a big long line of getting in. We try to give out a number of the numbers that we will be able to see in a day, so that they aren't waiting around and then at 4 o'clock say, you know, we can't see another 100 people. This is the waiting room, and this is what's so cool. Peru, they have a native dress, and the hat is definitely part of it. Côte d'Ivoire, this is a church that we're inside, and these are the people inside waiting, and these are the people outside waiting. We see lots and lots of people all the time. In Ghana, this was very interesting. Before we could do anything in the village, we had to see the chief and the elders. Now, we didn't talk to the chief. We talked to the headman. The headman talked to the chief. The chief talked back to the headman, and then the headman talked to our leader. And this was the same as in Côte d'Ivoire, even though the chief was the English teacher at the high school. So there's very much a protocol that we follow. In Côte d'Ivoire, we were met at this small village by the entire village and a marching band. And we marched through town with everybody. It's very humbling when you have that kind of response when you show up. This is the smallest team that I've been on. This is the Suriname team. There is 1 provider, 3 nurses, and 3 non-medicals, including our leader. The largest team I was on was India in November of 2019, actually the last trip I was on before COVID, and we had 35 on that trip. Very different. These wet rain suits were issued by Newmont Mining. They're one of our sponsors. And it was a good thing because this was our transportation in Suriname. The little hotel resort that we went to was 2 hours by boat up the river. And it did start raining. Fortunately, we could see the rain coming, and we scrambled into our suits, and then we just hunkered down and let the rain come. This actually is the first boat. The one I showed you before was my second trip. So that was interesting. This is our little resort over there on the left. There are no roads to this place. The only way to get here is by river. And as you can see in the picture on the right, it is a big river. Our clinics were actually farther upriver. So we get back in the boat with all our gear and take another hour up the river for our clinic. We actually had our clinic at the school, and these are the school buses. The kids come out of the classroom with their life jackets on and then walk and go get in their boats, and they're taken back to their villages. It was really cute to see that. Sometimes our accommodations look like this, and we are 5-star. It's incredible, beautiful. And sometimes they're like this. There is a mattress on the floor, and 2 people shared that room that night. 96 degrees at 1 o'clock in the morning when the electricity went off and our fans stopped. It was an interesting night. Most interesting stop was my second trip to Suriname. These are the shipping containers that have been made into individual rooms for the miners. And we were just put in along with the miners. We had our own room, each of us. In India, our food was cooked over a stove like this at our at our facility, Bibles for the World in Champur, and delicious food, delicious vegetarian in India, a lot of it. We had meat too, but a lot of vegetarian. In Paraguay, it's meat, 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 and more meat. If some of you are familiar with the Brazilian grill concept, Paraguay is exactly the same. In Haiti, we ate a lot of goat and mangoes, lots of chicken, fish, rice, and fruit almost everywhere. We do not drink the water. And when you take a shower, you keep your mouth shut. Even when I'm in the US and I'm in a hotel, I actually have to say, no, I can drink the water here. I'm so conditioned to stop and look for a bottle next to the sink. There are some events that happen or instances that you just stumble on that just really add to the whole flavor of the trip. We are in Cambodia, and we're kind of in a little village square with some homes and shops around, and that's where we set up our clinic. And right next to us, apparently, is this community chicken killing going on. And the children kind of hold on to the chickens, and then the guy kills them, and the women do the rest of it. It was just kind of fascinating to see this whole little village take part in this communal chicken killing. Also in Cambodia, we were at a small clinic, and the nurses went down the street, picked up meal, and asked us to come share with them. And so we all sat on the floor and shared a meal together. Everything I take is quick dry because everything has to go in my backpack and that little suitcase. So I have a clothesline that I can put stuff up on. This one particularly, Clyde came to Panama on this trip, and he brought cotton socks, so we had to leave them drying during the day. That's my cute little clothesline. Now this was interesting. In India, everybody gets wanded and frisks kind of wherever you go constantly, and they're segregated by gender. So it was very interesting to see this sign that says ladies frisking booth. When you go in and out of hotels, you are also have to go through the frisking booth. The bathrooms are an interesting situation. I guess you guys all are kind of can't see the whole thing. I'll spare you the details of a lot of bathrooms, but this one was well appointed and very nice. A lot of places we don't have Western toilets. This one actually has Western toilets as well as the hole in the ground. The far one is a hole in the ground. And I love the lights that tell you where they're occupied or not. There are some images that just stick with you all the time. These women in Peru brought the elderly woman down on the left. She couldn't walk, so they carried her in to see me. And then, of course, all of them wanted their vitals taken. And so I spent quite a bit of time with these 6 women. Just a beautiful little girl. And the next one, the little boy, just really grabs you. Now, along with all our clinic time, there is usually a day that you'll either do a tourist or a cultural event. This is Nicaragua, and this is coffee beans drying. And every bean on that concrete is labeled by the farmer who brought it in and which field it came from. In this particular trip, we had 2 gentlemen from Boca Java here in Denver. They were part sponsors of this trip, and they were going down to do some coffee buying. So the 2 gentlemen in black are the Boca Java people, and they are tasting coffee. And when the taster wants the coffee, he wants the coffee that he tasted. So that's why the labeling is so important. This is Panama, and we actually got to go up into those cranes and sit in the control seat, and everything under you is glass, so you can see exactly where you're putting that container. This is the Panama Canal, which I have seen multiple times now. Both of them, there are two open. They're pretty exciting. One of our hotels was on one side of the canal, and all of our clinics were on the other side of the canal. So every day we went back and forth on a ferry across the river farther down. This is the largest church in the world. It is 518 feet tall and can seat 18,000 people. The Taj Mahal, quite amazing. The pillars on the corners are 2 degrees off vertical, pointing out. So in case they would fall, they would not fall on the center dome. Iguazu Falls, the border between Paraguay, Argentina, and Brazil. It is 269 feet tall and 8,858 feet long. This is an amazing, thundering amount of water. Angkor Wat in Cambodia started out in the 12th century, early 12th century, as a Hindu temple. By the end of the 12th century, it was Buddhist. And Angkor Wat, the actual temple, is still in use now, continuous use since the 12th century. And Angkor Wat, the complex, is a series of multiple temples, but they're also one temple called Angkor Wat. This is the memorial at the killing fields of the Khmer Rouge. In April of 1975, Pol Pot took over Cambodia, and he proceeded to arrest and eventually kill almost all government officials, professionals, and intellectuals, around 2 million out of the 8 million population. And the reason we really didn't know a lot about it was because April 1975, we were leaving Saigon as fast as we could, and we didn't want anything else to do with Southeast Asia. In 1979, Vietnam actually invaded Cambodia and got rid of Pol Pot. Now this is pre-Incan. This is about 5,000 BC in the Cajamarca area of Peru. And amazing, the water is still running, and really pretty cool. There are a lot of this stuff. We did a hike at 11,000 feet and saw all this stuff. Cajamarca itself was where Pizarro met Atahualpa before he imprisoned him and then eventually killed him. Now, the other thing that's kind of fun on our trips is the animals we get to see. The macaque monkeys around the Taj Mahal. The coati trying to get food from us at Iguazu Falls. We were just driving down the road in Cambodia, and this elephant was coming home from market, so we got to stop and pet the elephant. These are the capybara of Paraguay. They are anywhere from 77 to 150 pounds. They're about 2 feet tall and about 4 feet long, and they just live in the waterways around town. This is actually right in town. The pink dolphins of Suriname, there are also pink dolphins in the Amazon. These guys, we were on a boat, and like the one on the right is like looking at us, and then he would dive down, and then he would come shooting up, twirling and just giving us quite a show. And you could tell that they were showing off for us. These are on an island off of Zanzibar when we were in Tanzania. These guys are anywhere from 150 to 200 years old. Now, what was interesting, you wouldn't think about this, but I'm standing there next to one of these pens, and one of these big guys comes out next to me, walks out deliberately to see me, and sticks his head out. He wanted his neck scratched. So that was kind of interesting to know that they interact with people. This is on an island, little island village in that huge river. This is a sloth that we got to hold. We're all used to the giant sloths, but this is actually just a regular sloth. In Honduras, there's a gentleman who goes around and digs up turtle eggs on unprotected beaches, comes back to his beach, and then buries them again and labels them. And little by little, as they come to hatch, he brings them out. And we actually got to let these guys go and get them back to the ocean. So that's the end of my trip, my presentation. This next one are some of the items that we use, that we can always use, that if you're so inclined. If you want to drop these off at the church or get them to me, I can always get them over there. So let me get out of this, and I will take any questions now. Thank you.
Anybody have a question to start us off?
Unmute yourselves.
Yeah, Julie?
I don't necessarily have a question. I just marvel, Patti Jo, at the work that you and all of these Project C.U.R.E. people do. It just to see all of your presentation. I mean, we've talked about it off and on over the years as you've gone, but it just blows my mind. I mean, the scope of the whole project, how many places you go, the amount of equipment you take, and the work you do for the people. It's got to be extremely rewarding.
Thank you. It really is. I find it very rewarding.
Patti Jo, how long are your trips usually? How long are you gone? Or does this
The longest one was 14 days. They try to do them between 8 and 10 days so that most of the medical people are still working, and they can kind of work around a week with weekends if possible. So they try to do 8 days. Usually we'll like leave on a Thursday night or Friday and come back the next Sunday night.
Have you ever felt unsafe?
Twice, maybe. The containers that we stayed in, we were with the miners, and the bathrooms were in other containers down the lane, and they weren't necessarily segregated. And so when you have to go to the bathroom at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're just a little uncomfortable, but it wasn't terrible. The other one was a time in Haiti. We really weren't we were taken care of well, but there had been a murder, and the perpetrator had been wounded and was in the hospital. Police had taken him to the hospital, and there was a crowd who wanted him brought back outside. And so they started burning tires in the streets. And so our van could not get through town. We took a U-turn trying to get around a different way, could not. We ended up pulling up into the aunt of one of our interpreters' houses. They brought out chairs for everybody. We sat down. Somebody went down to the cantina and bought beer for everybody. They never brought my Coke, but everybody sat around for about an hour and a half. And then we got back in our bus and went to our hotel. But those are the only 2 times. Most of the time we feel very safe. In Honduras, we actually had 2 armed guards with us the entire time. Clyde said that didn't make him feel all that comfortable. We did. We had, whenever we went walking anywhere, one was point and one was drag, constantly with us. So most of the time we're very safe. Our locations are usually clean and safe.
Charlie?
Do you worry about getting sick, or does sometime your team members get sick?
Sometimes they do. On my 22 trips with Project C.U.R.E, I have had 1 day where I had to skip a clinic. We are very careful with our food, extremely careful with our water. I do take malaria pills whenever I go. I've had all the shots you can get except rabies. And people do get sick, but rarely. I've been on trips where nobody's gotten sick at all. You know, probably on my 22 trips, I would say maybe 5 people. So maybe 5 days of people being down.
Al?
Patti Jo, that trip, that place you went to where you had to get to it by boat
Yes.
up the river, so you went there and treated people and then gave them some pharmaceuticals as needed, I suspect, and then left. How often does your group or other group, how often does any group get there for medical attention?
Well, believe it or not, each place that we stopped had a small clinic and a nurse or 2 on staff. And doctors get there maybe once a month.
Okay.
So we go in, we do a lot of screening. Suriname in particular is incredible high blood pressure. I think my first 30 patients I saw, I had 1 normal blood pressure. So there's a lot of stroke in Suriname. And you wonder why. Everything they eat or drink or whatever has to come upriver on those long boats. Yeah, we're there. That is a Newmont mining trip. They have a social responsibility organization within Newmont Mining. And so we do probably 2 trips a year to Suriname and different locations in Suriname. Yeah, Charlie?
The humanitarian effort is obvious. Does this organization have a religious affiliation?
None whatsoever.
No missionary work?
No, not per se. No. Many of the organizations that we work with are religious organizations. But we let them know right off the bat that we are not there to save souls. We have quite a few people who are anti-religion that go with us, but they're just humanitarians. So we make sure that the organizations that we work with understand that we are not there to proselytize. We are perfectly allowed to give our own testimony if we want to, but we make sure that the organization does not tell us anything that we can or can't do.
Stacy?
Patti Jo, do you know how fundraising is done for Project C.U.R.E, or is it because you guys are all self-funded? Is a lot of it donations? What is that?
The participants on the trips, yeah, we fund ourselves. We pay our own way. There are tips online for people fundraising ideas for the actual people in the clinics, but everything else is by donation. We do have some fundraising thing. There's a casino night. There's different things like that things are, you know, we fundraise. There is a organization within Project C.U.R.E that their whole thing is fundraising. I mean, it's a nonprofit with a very small paid staff, but a huge volunteer staff. At our warehouse here in Denver, we have people who volunteer there every single day. It's amazing. That's what they do. all the time, every day. Yeah. And it's actually the first time I heard of Project C.U.R.E. was because of Hope Church. And I don't know if it was Aaron or Dylan, sorted medical supplies with youth group. You can take a youth group down and they'll teach you how to sort the medical supplies that come in from the different hospitals and clinics. Here in Denver and all over the country, hospitals, clinics, doctors' offices will have a box that says Project C.U.R.E. on it. And anything that got opened and they don't want to finish, they throw in there and then it gets sent to us. And we repackage it and send it around the world. To have to give a shout out, the name Paula Davis is actually my mother. Paula Davis is the social worker on her floor, so she's here. And Susan Smith is my other sister along with Terry. So
Hi, all of Patti Jo's family, mom, sisters. We want to thank Patti Jo, of course. That was great, Patti Jo. The pictures you selected for that slideshow were amazing. So thank you so much.
okay, thank you, everybody.
And
Thank you,
Patti
Patti
Jo.
Jo. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Patti Jo.
have a good evening, everybody.